Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Fluctus Channel. The reason the United States gave Japan the highly classified F-15 technology comes into focus the moment the F-15J starts moving. Japan did not buy the Eagle as a prestige aircraft. It adopted it as the main fighter for air defense after the retirement of the F-104, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries built it under license as the F-15J, with the first delivery to the Japan Air Self-Defense Force in 1981. That alone says a great deal. Washington was not handing over a simple export fighter. It was trusting Japan to build, maintain, and sustain a frontline air superiority aircraft inside its own industrial base. In practice, that level of licensed production was reserved for a treaty ally sitting on the front edge of the Pacific balance of power. That strategic logic still shows up in real operations. In January 2021, Koku Jietai F-15J Eagles arrived at Andersen Air Force Base for a trilateral event with U.S. and Australian forces. An event meant to improve combat readiness, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief integration, and interoperability. That is the first key to the story. Japan received this technology not only because it could be trusted with advanced aviation, but because the aircraft was expected to fight, train, and integrate alongside American forces as part of the same air defense network. The F-15J was never just a national symbol. It was an alliance machine. Once airborne, the Japanese Eagle makes the case even more clearly. Scramble launches, hard climbs, and maneuver flights underline why Japan needed a true air superiority platform. The country sits close to contested sea lanes, exposed air approaches, and a demanding island geography where reaction time matters. In aggressor-style training, the F-15J also becomes a teaching tool, forcing pilots to fight against a familiar but still formidable airframe. That training value matters because licensed production is not only about manufacturing. It is about mastering the aircraft deeply enough to make it part of doctrine, maintenance, culture, and pilot development over decades. The maintenance footage strengthens that point. Routine inspection, gun maintenance, and engine work reveal that Japan did not simply want to fly American aircraft. It wanted to own the full cycle of readiness. Crew members inspect the jet, service systems, open access panels, maintain the cannon, and work on the engines because the value of technology transfer lies in independence of operation. A country trusted to assemble and sustain F-15s under license is a country trusted to keep them relevant without waiting for every answer from abroad. That is exactly why Mitsubishi's role mattered so much. The transfer was as much industrial as tactical, and the F-15J's role widened beyond pure interception. In addition to air defense, Japanese reporting and the supplied footage point to disaster information collection and transmission roles, showing how the aircraft has been used inside a broader national security framework rather than a narrow warfighting box. That also helps explain American confidence. Japan was not a reckless buyer chasing prestige. It was a disciplined ally with the technical capacity, political reliability, and operational need to turn the Eagle into a permanent part of national defense. So, the real reason Japan got the technology was not generosity. It was alignment. Japan had the industrial strength to build the aircraft, the strategic urgency to need it, and the alliance relationship to be trusted with it. The F-15J became proof that Washington would share very advanced capability when the partner was stable, technically mature, and central to the defense of the Pacific. And once that trust existed, it did not stop with the Eagle. It opened the door to another American aircraft that almost no country could expect to receive lightly: the V-22 Osprey. The aggressor role makes that trust even clearer. When Japanese Eagles fly as opposing force aircraft, they sharpen Allied pilots with the same speed, climb, and gun capability that made the F-15 family respected. A country asked to play that role is not treated like a junior customer. It is treated like a serious airpower partner. That distinction helps explain why licensed production in Japan was so significant from the beginning of the Eagle program there. The V-22 tells the same story in a newer form. In 2015, the proposed sale of 70 V-22B Block C Ospreys to Japan was valued at about $3 billion, and the aircraft was chosen to strengthen Japanese amphibious reach and rapid response. That matters because the Osprey is not a routine transport helicopter. It is a tiltrotor that combines vertical lift with airplane-like speed, giving Japan a way to move troops and supplies faster across island chains and maritime distances. Only a very trusted ally was going to receive that kind of capability in meaningful numbers. The delivery process itself made the trust visible. In February 2021, JGSDF V-22s arrived at MCAS Iwakuni in Japan during their second offload there. The deepwater port and advanced capabilities at Iwakuni allowed the aircraft to arrive by ship, receive functional checks, and then fly to their final destination. In other words, this was not a symbolic handover. It was a carefully managed insertion of a complex aircraft into Japan's own force structure. Joint drills reinforced the same pattern. Earlier, MV-22 arrivals at Iwakuni introduced the aircraft to Japan's operating environment, while later, exercises such as Iron Fist 2020 showed U.S. Marines and Japan Ground Self-Defense Force soldiers using fast rope techniques from the Osprey. Loading supplies into Japanese V-22s and watching them depart under their own power turns the aircraft from imported equipment into a working part of national mobility. It carries people, equipment, and replenishment loads, and it does so in the same alliance framework that made the F-15J possible in the first place. The aircraft's basic process also reinforces the argument. Cargo and passengers are brought aboard through a rear ramp. Loads are balanced for flight, nacelles rotate, and the machine leaves the ground like a helicopter before accelerating like an airplane. That is exactly why Japan wanted it. The same platform can carry troops, move supplies between islands, support fast rope drills, and even handle replenishment-style missions like the kind Ospreys have performed for U.S. Navy submarines. For a nation responsible for remote islands, disaster response, and rapid reinforcement over water, that combination is far more valuable than a normal helicopter fleet. It is another case where Washington shared advanced capability because Japan's geography made the capability strategically meaningful, not decorative. That is why the V-22 matters in this story. It proves the F-15 technology transfer was not a one-time exception frozen in the Cold War. The United States kept extending trust to Japan when the mission, geography, and alliance demanded it. And that same pattern of trust appears again in one of Japan's most distinctive aircraft of all, the Shinmeiwa US-2. The first international V-22 variant reaching Japanese service, therefore, carried a message beyond transport alone. It said the United States trusted Japan with a platform that mixes speed, lift, and amphibious relevance in a way few allies ever received from Washington. That trust was operational, political, and industrial all at once in this case. The Shinmeiwa US-2 exists because Japan's geography creates rescue problems that ordinary aircraft do not solve well. It is an amphibious search and rescue aircraft, operated by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, and one of its most important capabilities is the ability to take off from and land on the open sea in waves as high as 3 meters. Shinmeiwa also says that, including the US-1 lineage, these flying boats have been involved in more than 1,000 rescues and emergency patient transports from remote islands. This is not a museum curiosity. It is a specialized answer to a maritime nation's real needs. That role was clear in Guam. In February 2020, when the Japan Air Self-Defense Force demonstrated the capabilities of the Shinmeiwa US-2 inches, a joint rescue exercise with its U-125A search and rescue aircraft. The scenario was designed around the retrieval of downed pilots during combat situations. Years later, U.S. Air Force and Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force personnel flew together again in and around the US-2 during COPE Angel 23-2, including familiarization work that placed an American pilot inside the aircraft's operating environment. The US-2 also highlights something else about Japanese defense planning that made the earlier F-15 decision easier to understand. Japan does not just buy advanced aircraft because they look impressive. It keeps selecting machines tailored to the realities of an island state surrounded by long sea lanes, bad weather, remote outposts, and the constant possibility of rescue or reinforcement missions far from major runways. That kind of disciplined procurement builds confidence over time. When American personnel fly with Japanese crews in and around the US-2, the exercise is more than a friendly exchange. It is evidence that the alliance is comfortable enough to share procedures, cockpit familiarity, and operating experience in a uniquely specialized aircraft. In other words, the same reliability that justified licensed F-15 production decades ago still echoes in these later aviation partnerships. Trust became habit, and habit became a long-term pattern of high-end cooperation between two forces that increasingly expect to operate together under pressure. And that is the broader answer to the title. America gave only Japan this level of F-15 technology because Japan was not just another buyer. It was a uniquely trusted Pacific ally with the industrial discipline to build advanced fighters, the strategic need to defend a complex island environment, and the operational maturity to integrate that trust into a larger alliance system. That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of our new content. See you next time.